Hello and welcome to Vox Indie, the voice of knowledge. Today's guest may not work in lab, but her work is no less about exploration and discovery. Ronnie is an indie pop artist who started creating music alone at 14 years old. Since then, she has played 25 plus concerts, collaborated Kata Milti and others, landed editorial playlists on Yandex Music and Sound, and had her tracks featured in the series Friend Zone. Her audience exceeds 40,000 followers, and she has done it all independently. At 18 years old, she was accepted to Berklee College of Music and Columbia College Chicago for music business. Her music is about loneliness growing up and struggle between wanting to fit in and feeling different. She writes and performs in English, building an international path. We invited her to Vox Indie because we believe art and science share the same spirit. Enjoy the conversation.
I'm so excited to be here and to share my stories. I really feel like my experience could help someone, so yeah, I'd love to share. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. We are happy that you have joined us. Let's start. I want to know three words that describe you not as an artist, but as a person.
I was thinking about that when I was reviewing the questions, and the thing is that am a person I am as an artist in real life, so it doesn't really, divide into different personalities, me as a person in real life and an artist. But if I were to say three words, I'd say sentimental. I was thinking about fragile, maybe vulnerable, but it means like easily broken. I don't really feel like that. I'm not easily broken at all, but I really feel like I feel a lot of things. I'd rather say I'm sentimental, very much so. Okay, as a person, I'm very stubborn, I'd say. Not relationship wise. I'm very compassionate and empathic uh, to people, but I'm stubborn in my own life. If I want something, I would be like going through the whole path and really pursue my goals. So yeah, it's sentimental, stubborn, and maybe melancholic. I wouldn't rather say I'm sad, particularly sad, but yeah, it's also like part of melancholic. But this beautiful and I say light sadness. That's what I'm all about. So yeah, those are three words.
I got you. To be honest, sometimes I do the same. And we can see that you are stubborn, looking at your path and portfolio and all that you have done already. If a 14-year-old have never heard your music, how would you describe what you do in one sentence?
Um, I'd say like one sentence is very hard, but for me, it's songs you listen on your lonely way home to keep your thoughts company. I'd say it this way.
It sounds really great. And let's go back. In times, what's the one thing you wish someone had told you before you performed for the first time?
Okay, so performing was never a problem to me. Of course, there were like I was nervous and etc. But the thing that I've realized when performing is that that's the job you have to enjoy. Like not have to, but you should enjoy it because the enjoyment of other people you're performing to actually depends on how you enjoy it. So if you're really mocking it, if you try to um, make looks, fake it, like you enjoy it, which is actually the problem for me because I really try to adapt in life in so many ways. I really try to make an expression people expect from me. And when I'm performing, of course, it's all rehearsed and all this stuff, but you really have to feel this inside yourself. Like, yeah, I am here and I want to be here right now, and I'm living this moment with the people that I'm performing to. So yeah, it's all about emotionally enjoying the moment.
Yeah, it's true. And it's always this condition when you are nervous before performing or running on the competition, etc. But that thing that I understood too, uh, not a long time ago, that you should enjoy it. Uh, if you more think about that you're afraid of or you're anxious, it's not how it works. It's your
It's
job,
always
and yes, it's your job, and you're doing uh, what you love doing. And if it's like that, why are you like not enjoying it? But it's really hard to understand.
it's always going to be frustrating. Like, who are we lying to? It's not going to be even big artists. They're always nervous if they're thoroughly coming to their work and want to be good at the stage. They're always nervous, but it's always seen by the people around whether you love your job or you don't. So you better do.
Yes. Did anyone ever tell you that this wasn't for you, and how did you feel?
Mm, nobody ever said that music is not for me, because I mean that's a huge thing. That's a huge sphere. Everyone is in it some way. I'd rather got some support, but I've always been with people. I've always had people saying, you're not gonna be huge like worldwide, and you shouldn't be making music in English," which is actually the point as an artist who was born in Russia and who is in Russia right now. I was always being told like you should better make music in Russian, write in Russian, make some songs in your mother tongue, and it's true. It's gonna be pretty easier to get on the market and get some recognition. But at the same point, at the same time, it feels like it's not me. I've tried writing music in Russian. It's just not how it feels, because music is the reflection of my soul. It's a reflection of my thoughts, the way that I see this world. And I've started making music at like 12, and it felt like I've started forming thoughts in English. Why would I translate them to Russian? Because it's easier to promote. I mean, that's stupid. So yeah, it's way harder. I mean, English music is everywhere. It's a worldwide market, and it's gonna be very hard. But that's what always wanted for. So I I don't really care.
To be honest, it's a delight that you've started making music when you was only 12.
Hmm. Yeah, I started. It was like. I started making notes on my phone, and I was making poems at first. It started with that. I really love lyrics. It's just the most enjoyable thing for me in life. Having the song that will most precisely describe how you feel right now. It's just an amazing feeling. And that's why I started writing songs, right? Um, in at the age of like 12, I started playing ukulele and guitar, and it took me time to be okay with putting out some music. So when I was 13, I recorded my first song and then uploaded it when I was like 14 for 4 days or something. So yeah, I have my first song out when I was 14, when in reality, I started making music like about 12 or something.
Okay. Um, about concerts, have you ever stood on stage and felt like you didn't belong there?
All the time. I mean, it's like this feeling of being new to something, and it feels like you really, I mean, you know this phrase, fake it till you make it. And I really am following this most of my life. Like, I'm not confident. I don't feel good at singing. I don't feel good at performing. Even though we rehearse, for example, a lot of times, it just feels so nervous to me all the time. But when I come back to my core values and core thoughts about the music, I feel like, yeah, that's the only place I belong to. I would rather not see me anywhere else. That's the way I want to spend my life. So, yeah, I'm nervous, but I belong on stage, obviously.
Yeah, it's really great that you finally understand it. Is there one small daily habit that makes you better as an artist?
I'd say it's a very casual habit I really didn't come up with, but I started writing on my notes every day, like just keep it regular. If I were to advise something to anyone, when you have an idea at night, like it's waking you and you need to Google something or just write it down right now. I mean, do not postpone for tomorrow, for the morning, because you will forget it like 99% sure. Even though you want to sleep, I know, come on, but night is the time you get the most powerful ideas. And you know this vibe. I always have it. Like I write some song, and then I'm like at the point when I don't really know what to write. I don't know the words, and I'm going to the shower, and that's the moment every lyric I start to really know the words, really think of the words, and I write it in the shower, and I'm like, no, I just got into the shower. I don't have my phone and I try to memorize it, and then I'm coming out of the shower, and yeah, and I'm writing on the notes. So if you have access, please, any random idea, when you have any kind of idea, just write it down immediately. Do not wait, do not postpone for any time. Just do it time and time.
Yeah, it's true. Did you have the moment everything shifted for you? One decision or one day that changed your path?
There wasn't such a big moment I realized something or some, career thing that happened to me. Of course, I'd say every performance, it's kind of a way of reminding myself that there are people outside waiting for me and wanting me, which is actually so mind-blowing. Like, I don't really feel it on the internet. That might be the problem I mean, on social media, it just doesn't feel the same energy when people write you comments when they say it in real life. So I'd say performances are very reminding me of what I do is right and there are people for me. So I'd say, yeah, these moments, there are several of them.
Okay, and some advice for from great musician for teenagers who loves music but is scared to start. What's the very first step you would tell them to take?
I'd say tell your friends if you have good friends. I mean, even if you don't have good friends, but I mean, just tell anyone you have this spark. And then it's you're gonna share this moment. It's gonna be like a bit weight lifted from your shoulders about this idea, and then really do something. I mean, it's a nice advice, right? Do something. But in reality, I've mentioned that you should really put all the ideas you come up with throughout the day on your notes snap or something like that, just on your phone, and then come back to it. Don't be scared to be inspired. Like, watch a lot of movies, read a lot of books, because inspiration is everywhere. I'm very inspired by relationships I have with people or situations I feel like deserve my attention, and just exploit all the things you have in life, like all the pain, 100% sure. Happy songs are very hard to write, actually. So, um, yeah, just took pieces from your life, romanticize your life. I mean, come on. It's it's all about living this life and making it to art. So, yeah, little advice, tell someone, just share the spark and then really make something like you have some inspiration, make a little connection, and create something that will be connected to it.
What would you tell the version of yourself that was about to give up?
I've never really felt like I was about to give up, but I know that it strikes a lot of people at that age because they don't really know what to do, and music is considered to be not that profitable industry when you're just starting out. And for example, parents are worried like what you're gonna do, what you're gonna be making money from, and it's like a genuine question. It's okay. It's very, it's yeah. Um, but at the end of the day, I would say, come on, you can do everything you want yourself. You have so much more power than you really think you have. And with the growing, with growing up, it gets really easier to use it. Because when you're a teenager, you're really scared you have it, and you might not know you have it. And growing up just, frees your mind, make it free, and broadens it because you have more experience. So yeah, giving advice like don't be so scared that's every day is gonna be the last day of your life. Like, come on. You have so much power and you will use it. Just for um, you know, wait for growing up. Don't be scared of growing up.
Thank you for the interview that you agreed to join us.
Thank you for having me one more time. I mean, it's my it's my first interview in English, and I feel so scared, like, sharing my thoughts in English. So,
Thank you.
like, talking in interview in English, it feels different than writing a song, right?
I wish you to succeed in future in your music, in everything that you're doing now and that you will do. I really like you as a person.
Oh
One more time, thank
God.
you that you came.
Okay, thank you for inviting me. I mean, I wish you the biggest luck with your project. I would support it, and I would be very happy for it to actually grow big. So.